our Sactown Sports Kings insiders, but there's so much more than that. They bring so much to this station, and we're gonna get through this one way or the other. We are in the 12 o'clock hour, 2 hours down, 2 to go on this Friday Eve. And I told them, hey guys, I just did about an hour on LeBron. I don't think we need to do. No, it wasn't.
It was 45 minutes.
I don't think we need to do any more. And
wait, how deep in the weeds are you? Because we're gonna find it. We're gonna cut it. You know, we were meetings, but how deep in the weeds are you on that?
It's not that deep in the weeds.
He locked me in the dungeon and made me get fake trades.
There's two options. But I said, I'm talking to the listeners here. I said, hey, I don't really think we need to do any more LeBron. And Brenden agreed, but for some reason, Frankie Catoscelli just said, hey, I really want to do a little bit more LeBron talk. So, Frankie.
Did I? No.
Yeah, did you have something?
No, I didn't want to say. No, I was just looking forward to hearing your thoughts because, this is your show, man.
Is there anything, if you could do a Kevin Huerter, DeMar DeRozan, and a bunch of picks, would that interest you or just zero interest?
I think for the fact that LeBron James is turning 40, I think in 2 weeks. It's just not a smart move for the organization.
Okay.
Not
You're
now.
growing up a Kings fan. Someone tells you, hey, little Frank, one day you're going to get LeBron James. He's going to be almost 40, but you have a chance to get LeBron James and pair him with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. I think little Frank's saying,
and mortgage
let's do it.
The entire future, not the entire future, but the near future on LeBron James leading the Kings to an NBA championship, because that would be the expectation, right? If you empty the bank,
sure. Yes,
you need to have a championship. You can't have LeBron play in Sacramento for 30 games and that was fun. LeBron was a king for 30 games, but we gave up 2 first-round picks, Kevin Huerter, DeMar DeRozan, in De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis' prime. No, it's an interesting report. Definitely raised an eyebrow, and I sent it to Brenden today and was kind of like, because I don't know who that league executive is. I mean, how high up could he be? I'm not sure, but it just sounds like a general thought, not that there's interest there.
Yeah, it sounded more speculative, like, oh, this is a team that in his mind could make sense, rather than reporting that like there's real interest on both sides.
It was, why isn't anybody talking about this? Makes sense to me. Speaking of execs, guys, and we're about to get to some of the biggest takeaways that you've had with the Kings and their time off. But speaking of execs, Sam Amick, that survey, Monte McNair and the front office for the Sacramento Kings not getting any votes, right? Only 9 teams didn't get a single vote as far as receiving a first, second, third, fourth, or fifth place vote at best front office in the NBA. Monte McNair and Sacramento Kings not getting one. A little surprising. I mean, and Sam Amick said this is not just based on this season. This is a body of work. So it told me that people really don't know what to do with DeMar DeRozan coming to the Kings. That's what that told me. To make a move like that and not get one vote from other execs, that's kind of nuts.
I think people were already skeptical about the DeMar thing, but I do think it goes deeper than that. Like it's everything that we've talked about, that this team has no wing or forward depth.
Yeah.
And that's been the case since Monte McNair took over. And it's kind of ironic because he won the general manager of the year his first year. And obviously that was the Tyrese Sabonis trade. And, even more so as that becomes further in the past, I think hindsight, obviously a little 2020 and people are a little unsure. And I saw somebody joke around about it being a lose-lose trade even nowadays, So like,
I think ESPN called it a lose-lose change.
Yeah. So
lose-lose trade.
Perspective changes on some of that stuff. And I think it's all the complementary pieces. Like DeMar is definitely a part of it, but I would guess that the lack of depth and just larger moves while really just running it back with the same stuff and then piecing in DeMar DeRozan is probably a big part of that as well.
Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been enough. I mean, I think that the perception of the Kings is shifted to be positive, right, over the past 2+ years. But at the same time, I think we're kind of entering the territory of people from that same perspective are now looking at it as they're spinning their wheels. They're looking at Sacramento as a situation where they're being a little bit complacent and not reaching high enough or making those gambles or moves that can either pay off or sink you deeper into the standings. But the DeRozan move is one that it didn't come with too much repercussions. We'll see about that pick swap down the line. But obviously with the injuries and the struggles through the first 20 games, it didn't look like a team was fit. It didn't look like it was working out. Now, the past 2 games have been encouraging. They've beat what was it, Utah, and it's been like a week. Who they played?
Spurs.
Utah
Finally
and
beat
the Spurs.
Yeah.
That's right. It's like a week since there was like a game.
Yeah.
So you beat those last two teams by 27 or more points. Offense looks good. They're teams that should be in the lottery, but you have to kind of hope that was a case of early season, thoughts. Those results are based off the early season struggles. And if the Kings rattle off, 4 or 5 out of their next 6 or 7, like maybe people look at them differently.
Yeah. And we're about to head, guys. I've been continuing to bring up the Kings are 2-0. The next 8 games are going to take us to the end of the year. So as the Evan Sitteries of the world and the Brett Siegels of the world, the Shams of the world, when he's not fighting with Jimmy Butler's agent, as this stuff starts to heat up, we're in a tough spot. And we looked at the teams that the Kings are playing. You're Monte McNair, and obviously we want the Kings to win games. Trust me, it's good for business. What if the Kings go 8-2 to end the year? And this stuff starts heating up. There are a lot of names out there, not, beyond Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith, beyond those names, but there are other teams that are starting to decide that they're not good enough, and they know that they're not good enough. The Golden State Warriors, they're doing something. They know they're not good enough. We just don't know what they're going to do. The Kings, we had a caller say, hey, what do you think about the fact that Kings don't make a move last season? Are they going to make a move this season? You look at the Kings, and if the Kings go 8-2 to end the season, they're already 2-0, 8-2. They're 10 games to end the year. You're Monte McNair. Do you say, well, I don't want to mess up this mojo. So what do you do if this team does start to play better? Can you see, hey, they're playing better, but they're not good enough, or do you just let them rock?
I mean, I don't think any sort of streak they could go on right now would make you think that they're a legit championship contender. So
Right.
in my mind, no matter what, like I've been on here previous years preaching like the idea of patience and why Monte McNair's been picky.
And I'll roast you on it.
I think this offseason or this trade deadline really is the one where it's like you need to do something.
Wow. It's finally time.
I think it's finally, I mean, it's been long enough.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Well, I was preaching patience for probably longer than I should have.
I know. I think we were on the show not too long ago, and you're like, wow, I did say that, that last year. But it goes by. That's how fast it kind of comes up on you.
Right. Yeah. And so I think that, you went and got DeMar DeRozan, obviously. You have this De'Aaron Fox situation, which I don't really know what to make of the whole conversation of, is he going to stay if things go bad, blah, blah, blah. But you don't have that, like, timelines only last so long in the NBA. And I think you need to figure out what you have with this group, and you're not going to know until you go get the right complementary pieces. So I think it needs to happen by this deadline. There's pressure from, I'd imagine ownership wants to see things get better. I think that there's pressure for this team to do something this year,
but that's not LeBron James.
It could be.
I wouldn't bet on it. Who would you like the Kings to go after more, Allen? LeBron James or Jordan Poole? Because
or Marcus Morris. Don't put my business out on the street like that.
Now we're getting
don't put my business out on the street.
Has he not had the pool party here?
He made sure to bring up that Jordan Poole had a new celebration after he hit 3-pointers.
What is that celebration?
The drowning in the pool where he covers his nose.
I missed this. That's kind of cool.
I don't know if that's drowning. That's kind of that's a morbid perspective.
I don't love it, but if he came to Sacramento, look, it's not about that, guys. You just said, Brenden, hey, you got to put the chips all in. I think that these names that keep coming up, my question is, and this is for you guys, but just in general, is what is all in? Evan Sittery just came out again today and said that the Kings I don't think anybody's untouchable in total, but as of right now, Kings are still wary to move Keegan Murray. Okay, fine. So let's add Cam Johnson. Fine, let's do it. Add Cam Johnson, Trey Lyles, Kevin Huerter, and a couple picks for Cam Johnson. Are the Kings going to win a championship? Because that's actually thinking that's a lot of people's dream scenario. So I don't even know what going all in is. I don't know what the Kings are trying to do.
But the important part is they're get Cam Johnson. He's under contract. He's on a 40-year-old man.
No. Agreed. I think yes. So
you can build around that.
You're building around that. Yes. So it's not necessarily going all in this season. It's making a move to set you up moving forward.
To keep climbing.
Yes.
This climbing together thing that Mike Brown loves. They need to continue trending upwards because right now they've kind of flatlined a little bit and stayed at this point for this is the second straight year where we're kind of talking about the same stuff, kind of the third straight year, really. But you'll get the leeway of that first year being a feel-good season, first year breaking the drought and all that. But it's not like you have to mortgage your whole future necessarily. I just think that you have to give these guys a better chance. And if we're talking championship stuff, I think that still is and has always been reliant on, can De'Aaron Fox be good enough to be a number one on a championship team? You see him continue to get better, and it's like you're kind of in a spot where you're forced to bet on that when it comes to like your star top end talent.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that as far as like if they're going to make a move 100%, and I think Sam said it on the morning show today that it'd be more of around the edges moves, and maybe that's not the most like, sexy option for the Kings right now. But at the same time, like I think that the big picture leveraging the future type move, I don't know if it's really out there. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be kind of the return that Washington will expect for a Kyle Kuzma, Brooklyn for a Cam Johnson, which it might take a little more draft capital for that, but that's maybe that might be like I don't want to say the biggest potential option because we don't know what can come to fruition or what can happen.
Yeah.
Or again, what the saying is 10% of all, trades like that come out, like you only hear 10% of the trades that come out, like the 90%, like they say in the background, you don't hear about them till down the line. Someone writes a book about it and you hear about the deals almost happen. But I think the Kings right now, they need to make a move for sure. But if they're going to leverage the future, to your point, like it's got to be for someone that's controllable, someone that's young. And if Keegan's someone that has to be traded to make that happen, probably someone bigger than Cameron Johnson.
I think yes, I agree with that. I do think, and I made the joke about, and Brenden, you're from the Bay Area too. I made the joke about your friends that have been trying to buy in the Bay Area, waiting for the bubble to burst, and now they don't even live in California anymore because it just never did. And that's how I feel about this, the patience thing. That's how I felt last season. That's how I feel this season. Until maybe the Warriors remove themselves from the Cam Johnson sweepstakes because they get Jimmy Butler or somebody. If Brooklyn is just sitting there saying the price is going up, the price is going up, the price is going up, and the Kings don't even necessarily know what they're waiting for. It's not going to drop. We had on a Nets writer in the summer, and he said they're just going to wait. Right? It's like crypto.
Yeah, why would they not?
They're just going to wait. Why would they not? And if you keep them, you keep them. We discussed the Raptors thing and how, okay, now you're getting to OG Anunoby, and maybe this is the year, as in they finally moved off of Pascal and OG Anunoby. Maybe, but I feel like if you're Brooklyn and you're competitive, what's the rush? At what point? Cam Johnson, they're all saying the right things. They all want to stay in Brooklyn. Nobody is making a fuss out there. It feels like they like playing for Jordy. So what is the rush? So I just don't know when these prices are going to drop. And at that point, it becomes, you're probably going to have to overpay for some of these guys. All right, guys, got to get to a break. Let's talk about the here and now. Let's talk about the reality of the current Kings roster. Being around the team these last couple of days where they did not play and they were just practicing, what were the insiders' biggest takeaways? Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports, taking up to 2 p.m., joined by Frankie, Catoscelli, and Brenden Nunes, our Sactown Sports Kings insiders. Guys, you've been around the team a lot these last couple of days. Basically, their biggest break or longest break they're going to have besides the All-Star break. What were your biggest takeaways from Mike Brown? Anything the players had to say? What seemed to be the theme, if you will, during this? Maybe there were a couple themes during the off time.
I think it goes back to Mike Brown's viral possession after possession 26 times over. Like they're trying to fine-tune all the details, almost treating it like training camp all over again. You get to re-emphasize some of those things. And also, little things that you normally wouldn't have the time to work on. Mike Brown referenced like post defense. Right. When would we ever get the chance to work on post defense? So it gives you that sort of time and to clean up of, I think DeMar DeRozan is the one that he's still kind of getting a feel for on this team and how that works rotationally, maybe it is, or different things like that. So I think it's a lot of fine tuning the details that we've really already heard, whether that's, closeouts or playing in the gaps defensively, making sure that they're getting the proper spray threes, maybe a couple actions to get DeMar or De'Aaron easier looks into catching the ball in their spot rather than them having to go dribble into it sort of thing. So a lot of it is they're saying that this is pretty much training camp all over again.
Yeah.
which I think it was Malik or someone had a funny comment. Just about,
Malik joked after the game.
Joked about, I got a training camp again. But yeah, I think the most important thing too is getting a little bit of a chance to breathe. I mean, it's been a pretty tumultuous start to the year, and one that obviously has gotten a lot of people in and around the organization on edge a little bit. And I think winning a couple of games in that fashion, it'd be a lot worse to go into that break on the heels of a disappointing loss or in a bad situation. You're just kind of ruminating on what happened in that ugly game to end the year in that break. But here we are. They're entering play tonight against they're 5-20 New Orleans Pelicans team. You can't take any team lightly, but they're rested. I think one of the practices, DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk weren't there, and apparently it wasn't really due to an injury. It was more of a maintenance situation, I think.
They said it was precautionary and that if they were playing, they would be out there.
Yes.
But you have that luxury.
The classic.
But you have that luxury
right.
when you have that many days off in a row. And the next day of practice, they looked like they spoke to the media too. So it really was just kind of a nice chance to take a deep breath and reevaluate some things. Like Brenden said, work on some situations and some things in practice that you wouldn't normally do in preparing for a game on a one-day break. So, now it's no excuses. They play tonight and they have a couple more days off, and then they kind of dive back into it and have a lot of games at home too, or they haven't been as good as they should be.
They're 3-1 over their last 4. And I kind of asked Malik yesterday how much he feels like they've been doing Mike Brown's possession after possession sort of mantra. And I thought his answer was interesting, saying, quote, "We're getting there. I feel like we've got to beat a few more good teams, then we'll realize how good we can be. Until then, I feel like we'll just be level, going up and down until we start beating them good teams in a row." I feel like that's when we'll be at our best.
Well, sure, brother, but just beat teams.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Just win games.
Right.
Because tonight, I don't care if they're -5 and 20, you got to win tonight. Okay. The Pelicans, I don't care who they put out there with CJ McCollum. He's ticked off that the Kings didn't draft him.
Still angry.
I forgot about that.
No, how could you?
Gosh, he mentions it after every game.
Every game.
He brings up every game.
I kind of like it. But.
Yeah. I mean, we won't get into that. The other thing with Malik in the starting lineup and how that has changed things, Mike Brown has been pretty open that, hey, this has really not thrown a wrench in things, but it changes how we have to, I think he said, what did he say? The beginning of the second quarter or the rotations
it's
there.
about like a 5-minute stretch, end of the first, start of the second, and same thing, end of the third, start of the fourth, where you really only see De'Aaron, because they try to keep at least 2 of De'Aaron, Keegan, Domas, DeMar, and Malik on the floor at all times. And typically in that stretch, just with how rotations have worked, it's De'Aaron and Keegan. And Keegan's not creating for himself or his teammates at this point. So it puts a lot of pressure on De'Aaron in those stretches.
Still, still waiting for with that being said, still waiting for that, I guess, breakout game from Keegan Murray. I promise you guys, every game I think it's going to happen. He locked up Lauri Markkanen pretty darn good. He put him on an island. I don't know if the Warriors are continuing because they're winning, but there's going to be a day where Kevin Huerter doesn't score 26 points and Malik cools off a little bit, or somebody cools off a little bit. And I think that speaks to the sustainability of this. The only guy that you can kind of count in that 15 points every single night, just based on the flow of the offense, is Domantas Sabonis. And maybe to a lesser degree, that De'Aaron is going to get over 15 just based on volume. DeMar DeRozan to a lesser degree as well. But besides that, everything feels good right now. Kevin Huerter's been playing well off the bench. Malik Monk's been playing well as a starter. But I just can't get over the fact that you're going to need this Keegan Murray thing isn't going to go away. And to Malik's point, you could win tonight. But when you do face a good team and the Grizzlies got 10 dudes in double figures, you're going to look and say, you can't have a thin bench and your starters aren't producing offensively the way you need them to start. Because, I'm not putting him in the same category, but to be a two-way guy, you got to be a threat offensively as well. We can't call you a two-way guy. You're Matisse Thybulle if you're just a good defender. So I don't know when that's going to happen. I know they're winning games, but it's just in the back of my mind because they are playing lesser competition these last couple games.
Yeah, and super limited sample size here, but the last 4 games alone, it's just going to show that signs of he is kind of slowly starting to come out of it, Keegan Murray.
Yeah.
And the last 4 games, he's playing about 35 minutes per game, but he's averaging 12 points per game, 7 rebounds, so he's still rebounding, making an impact there a little bit. But the 3-point shooting has gotten better. He's taking 5 attempts per game, making 40% of those, shooting 49% from the field. So again, 4 games, very limited, but just over this recent stretch where, like we mentioned, they've won 3 of 4. They're playing a winning brand of basketball. Keegan Murray is doing what he can, and maybe not going to be a 15, 20 point per game scorer. I don't think he really needs to be that when Malik Monk's in the starting lineup, when you have that many self-creators and guys like Fox, DeRozan, Malik, those guys can all get you 20 plus points. It kind of has shifted Keegan back into that role where he was his rookie year, where if you're going to be a movement shooter and an off ball or DHO option, like you said, you got to knock him down. And it looks like he's starting to knock him down a little more. And maybe that's, I don't want to, put him into a corner, but maybe that's where Keegan Murray is at his best right now as an NBA player. Maybe he's at his best as a movement shooter, not someone who's having to go self-create, because he can do that. We've seen him do it. I think Mike's talked about it, how it's impressed him, how Keegan can have a little step back or have his little mid-range shot. But when he's playing in an offense like this with Malik Monk and all these creators, 40% from three, and he's rebounding the basketball, the numbers looking better.
On the other side, we talk about tonight and whether the Kings are going to turn it around, and we discuss the dribble handoff versus the pick and roll. Is that the key to unlocking this Kings offense? Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports, taking you up to 2 p.m.
Bars.
Joined by Frankie Catoscelli, Brenden Nunes. Guys, first of all, do the Kings turn it around tonight? Do they finally, and I'm saying specifically against the Pelicans, do they slay the Pelicans dragon?
If they don't tonight, I don't know how you can ever feel good about them doing it anytime soon.
Zion, these are the guys that are out. Zion, Brandon Ingram, Jose Alvarado, Jordan Hawkins, Daniel Tice is questionable. He missed last game, and Javonte Green is questionable.
Yeah, I mean, look, this isn't the same Pelicans team from last year, and yeah, they are going to still have CJ McCollum, who had a big game against the Kings at Golden One Center, which ended with him telling the TV, the sideline reporter, that the Kings passed him up. But this is a team that's one of or the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. They are just one of the worst teams in the league in general. Offensive rating, I think, is last in the NBA. So if you can take care of business against them, I wrote it my preview today. I think that they are 1 in. Give me one moment. 3-point shooting. They are 1 in 11 this year when shooting under 37% from three. So if you can kind of keep them under 37%, if they don't shoot, if they don't have a good night from three, the Kings are very likely going to win the game. But again, the Kings 3-point defense, 28th in the NBA right now. They allow opponents to shoot 37% from three this year.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
So it's a law of averages. You got to hold them underneath that average and hope that things can go their way. But I mean, obviously the Kings are set up right now. You win tonight, you get back to 500. You have a couple more days. They don't play again until Monday. Then you have Denver in town. But home cooking for a while. You play in California, I think, after today for almost a month. They don't go on a road trip until mid-January. So really, this is a good opportunity for them to, take advantage of the holiday season. A lot of home games, a lot of people in the building, and hopefully change the narratives on this team.
With the 3-point shooting, I will say, like, the length was an issue last year, and I think that also correlated to the Pelicans 3-point shooting. Like, you have these tall, high releases of Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, previously Brandon Ingram. He's not going to be there today, obviously, but that still exists,
Yes.
And so I think Frankie has a great point. Like, the not letting a bad offensive team get some confidence early, get a rhythm is going to be key. But this team is 5-20.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be serious,
but not this team, not the Pelicans team they're playing tonight.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, they're more talented than they're 5-20 for sure.
Yes.
But that's also the reality of what this team is looking at right now. So they are going to probably play with some level of desperation. I think obviously comes with that. But I mean, you already lost 2 games to the Spurs, that you're a team that you're supposed to be better than. These teams that you're neck and neck with. Yeah, the Blazers. These teams that you're neck and neck with and really supposed to be a tier above in the Western Conference, and the Pelicans have proven themselves to be lower, obviously. You have to take care of business here. We mentioned Malik Monk saying you got to beat the bad teams. Your point stands. You have to you have to beat good teams. You still have to take care of business against these.
That's what I'm talking about. And somebody on the text line mentioned that as well. Guys, I just had to, and I think we do it every year.
Here we go.
The 2013 draft, one of the most confusing drafts, I think, in the history of the NBA. So you have CJ McCollum. He went 10th to the Blazers, of course. And he's mad at the Kings, who took Ben McLemore at 7. But all these guys, I mean, Anthony Bennett went 1.
I still am just so dumbfounded and stunned when I remember that.
Anthony Bennett went 1. Victor Oladipo went 2.
He was really good for a while.
He was.
Yeah, they ended up being okay.
They knocked out Temple in March Madness when he was at Indiana. Otto Porter Jr. went 3. Cody Zeller went 4.
Oh,
Alex Len went 5. Nerlens Noel went 6.
That's disgusting. This top 6 is
that
disgusting.
4, 5, 6 is ridiculous.
Brutal. It was literally a different time.
Shout out Alex Len though.
Oladipo kind of like not saved. I mean, he was an all-star, but
Yeah, he couldn't stay healthy.
yeah,
He couldn't stay healthy.
His career got better once he finally got out of Orlando.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that one of those drafts where like 27 was like Gobert?
It's a Giannis draft.
Okay.
Yeah, and Gobert was drafted as well. 7 was Ben McLemore. 8 was KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Not bad.
9, this was my guy, Trey Burke.
Okay.
Trey Burke was my guy from Michigan.
he gave buckets, man. He was a problem.
CJ McCollum went 10. And Michael Carter-Williams was 11. He was Rookie of the Year.
And I don't think he was ever even relatively anywhere near as good as he was after his rookie
No.
year.
Peaking in your first game.
Yeah,
is
because the
insane.
Sixers then tore the whole thing down right after they drafted him.
Steven Adams went 12. Kelly Olynyk went 13.
KO.
Shabazz Muhammad went 14. And Giannis went 15.
You know, the McLemore, that pick was, I think, praised because the Kings needed shooting around Boogie, and people liked it. He was athletic. He was one of the more top. I think he was a top college talent that was supposed to go top 3, and he fell with 7. I mean, I guess we know now why, but just never worked out here. But that was I think 2014, I think was or 15. What 15 might have been actually the Papagiannis draft.
Yeah, 13. Yeah, 2013 was a very role player heavy draft. Dennis Schroeder, Mason Plumlee, Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock, Rudy Gobert, so guys like that. So
same vibes as 2024.
Yeah.
And to answer your point, Alan, the reason CJ McCollum specifically does not like the Sacramento Kings out of all those teams is that the Kings told him they were going to draft him and then did not draft him.
But did they?
They probably did.
According to him, they did.
They probably did.
I don't know why he would lie about that.
But did they?
That was such a weird time for the Kings, though. I think it was Pete D'Alessandro was in charge then. I think that, and also in that draft, I think Jerry Reynolds or someone told the story that I think one of the last things that Jeff Petrie said when he was leaving, the Kings was that, hey, like that Antetokounmpo kid's going to be pretty good. That kid from Greece is going to be good. Like, just keep your eyes peeled.
These stories are always so funny to me.
Why?
Like Wes Wilcox will talk about how he was huge on Giannis.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the guy who ran the Orlando Magic went on a podcast with Woj and was like, oh, at number 2, we were thinking about picking Giannis.
Ridiculous.
It's revisionist history. Just like, oh, yeah, we were going to take him.
Yeah, I'm sure people were interested. But
where was Wes working in 2013 again? Was he with Atlanta?
Atlanta,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to the team that the Kings do have right now. And guys, we were discussing this last week. Jill Adge had this breakdown on social media about the DHOs versus the pick and rolls and how maybe having Malik as they revert to the pick and roll more often, their shooting has been better. So Frankie, as you bring up the movement shooting with Keegan, it also feels like the pick and roll where it's just nobody can stay with. I mean, there are not a lot of defenders that can stay with Malik or De'Aaron Fox once they put their head down and they make one move and they get to the paint. They either finish it themselves or they kick it out. Does it feel like the DHO, I don't want to say played out, but does it feel like it's been time for the Kings to remix it a little bit? I like to use the Boogie Cousins meme with Karl Anthony Towns. The Kings are sitting there just playing ring around the Rosie and the defense just doesn't care because they're not making shots. Was it time for them to mix it up a little bit?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, sure. And I think that having Malik Monk, who I think primarily we kind of focused on last year, his pick and roll game was mostly with Alex Len because he's playing in the second unit. And now Domantas Sabonis is one of the best screeners in the league. Pretty hard to slip a Domantas Sabonis screen or get around it. So we're seeing Domas, who also is really at his best around the rim. I think he's around 70% at the rim this year. He just really is a good finisher. That pairing has worked out well. And also when defenses collapse in on Domas going to the rim because they're trying to block a shot, that is freeing up open looks for guys like who have been playing better, like Kevin Huerter, who's knocking down threes lately, 50% from 3 the past 4 games. Keegan Murray, like I just pulled up, last 4 games, 40% from 3. So I think that this Malik Monk offense has kind of given a chance for not just those guys, but even De'Aaron Fox to play off the ball a little bit more, which I think that's something that has been an intriguing aspect of the Kings offense too, is Fox is playing a little more off ball and, scoring more on cuts and things of that nature. But I think when you have guys like Malik in the lineup and multiple guys that can kind of have that kind of ball movement and demand that kind of attention, I think having a pick and roll heavy offense, especially with Domas on the floor, is going to be something that works out well.
I think so too. I mean, I think part of the DHO game was that it makes it easier for Kevin and Keegan to like pseudo create their own shots. They're really doing it off of Domas, but now you obviously add DeMar into the mix, Malik moving into this starting group, obviously what De'Aaron can do off the dribble, but that's in my mind the hardest thing to guard is a guy that can create from the perimeter specifically.
Yeah.
And so I think they have leaned more into this pick and roll game, but the DHO still exists, and sometimes there's really not that much of a difference.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's just who has the ball at the beginning of it, the guard or the big, so they're running a lot of the same stuff, but Domas, I think the most like obvious basic stat to show it a little bit is his assists are down from 8.2 to 6.2, but he's a little bit more of a play finisher. I actually hadn't realized till right now. He's got a career high in field goal percentage, 62.2%, 3-point percentage, 42.9%. That's crazy. And free throw percentage, 81.5%. So he's been really efficient at finishing plays, can re-emphasize like he always did, I guess, because led the league in rebounding for 2 years in a row, but getting on the offensive glass. And I think when you just have those sort of talented perimeter creators that you kind of want to cater to that a little bit, but that doesn't mean that Domas's screen setting ability isn't still impacting the team.
One more segment with the guys. Get your questions in 916-339-1140 or on the Sac chat. Be a part of our community on YouTube, Sactown Sports 1140. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Brenden, you could flow to this, couldn't you?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frankie?
No. I'm not. Was it be easy?
No.
I'm relaxed.
Frank, relax.
We're going to come back with one of Brendan's
No, we are not.
songs.
We are
We're
not.
going to find them.
They're demanding I play this on the air.
You guys are still playing Kid Rock when I come back.
That joke is like 3 years old now, and it's still funny every time.
People are like, why do they play Kid Rock when you come on? I don't want to get into it.
You have a lot of different attachments to you. You
Pizza
have the
guy.
you have the Costco guys.
For some reason, that was Verlaud made that up out of thin air.
We bring the boom.
That was ready.
The Rizzler dropped a Christmas song too.
That was so gross.
I hate where we're at, but I appreciate people getting their money.
Were the Costco guys on your Spotify Wrapped?
No.
We bring the boom.
You don't appreciate the artistic vision.
Apparently not. But
you're not bringing the boom.
You're not having a very Rizzler Christmas.
I'm not. How the Rizzler stole Christmas. This is
that what it's called?
No, but I don't know.
No,
maybe.
there's a shocking amount of production value behind it too. I've seen the first 20 seconds of it. There's a shocking amount of production value.
I'm sure they have plenty of money to roll into something like that.
Hey, just wait. Once you get Baby Frank, hey man, we got to collab. We're gonna make some money here. Baby Styles, Baby Frank, we gotta make some money one way or the other. Let's hope that the Kings are ready to make some money tonight with a W in New Orleans, guys. And we were discussing whether or not the Kings even need to make a move. Brenden, you kind of beat me to the punch earlier when you said, well, it depends. If we're talking championship, there's no way that they can't. But I did want to ask, is there a world where they don't?
Explain that again to me.
Is there a world where the Kings don't make a move and it doesn't result in Monte McNair losing his job?
I mean, yeah, if they went on a run like you were talking about, I guess, if this group managed to click and get out of the first round, but I don't really think that I'd be shocked if he's even able to not make a move by the deadline. I think that, again, unless they go on some big run, but I still think that wing forward depth is going to bite you in the heel every couple games, So I think that he's going to kind of have to.
I did want to add this because we know that you do that podcast, Kings Beat, and I was listening to some of it over the weekend, and one of the first calls today brought up the Monte McNair conversation and whether or not he can make a move. I liken this, Frankie, to baseball in a way, and not your New York Yankees, but the San Francisco Giants with Farhan. And a lot of the conversation was, why is this guy penny pinching? We know the Giants have a lot of money. And I always thought, is it ever going to come out that, there was an understanding that Farhan was brought in to fix the books. There were some bad deals, and we never really knew how much freedom Farhan was getting. why would Farhan care about spending somebody else's money? That's what I always thought. And I thought that maybe there was some of Farhan's philosophy in there, but also the Giants maybe weren't allowing him to spend that type of money. I want to be careful here, guys. But
same
as far as, and I think we can do it. As far as making these moves are concerned, what is your understanding about as far as ownership, the luxury tax, and how much freedom Monte McNair has to say, bleep it, I want to do this, I want to do that? Because Monte is getting a lot of flack, but do we know that Monte just has freedom to do whatever the heck he wants?
I don't think that we know that. And I think what I would say is as you earn more leeway when it comes to that stuff. And if you start putting together a better product that looks more competitive than what they have so far, even though this has been positive progress compared to the 17-year playoff drought, then you could get more leeway. I think that's just, me assuming what I would think would go through the mind of ownership. But as of right now, the impression that we've gotten is that they don't want to be a tax-paying team. And they also don't have a product on the floor that I think would justify that necessarily up to this current point. So it does limit your flexibility a little bit. And there's like revenue sharing involved in some of those conversations as well. And I think they forfeited their revenue sharing for the first handful of years as well as part of the agreement to stay in Sacramento, which is that comes up in this conversation as well. So you want to get a part of that. But impression right now is maybe they don't want to be a tax-paying team, which, hinders you a little bit, but a lot of teams have their back against the walls, not necessarily because of ownership, but first and second apron. That's part of why the Kings LeBron thing came up today. It says in that article, so many other teams just can't do anything. And these guys still have a little bit of flexibility. Now you might be fighting against the cap, but you have salaries that you can move and try to get things done there. Or, is Doug McDermott going to make it to the end of the year? Is Orlando Robinson going to make it to the end of the year? It's your end of year salary that ends up counting towards these numbers.
And I think they have $7 million underneath the
first
tax, the threshold. And like, it's something that they're kind of navigating. I think they don't want to be a tax team, but at the same time, like for the Sacramento Kings, I feel like to be up there with those big hitters, you might have to be a tax team. You might have to at some point say, we're going to have to kind of overspend or overinvest and hope it kind of comes back and works out. Because if you want to maximize the value of this, this core, which Sam Amick today on with Dave and Jason said that this ownership group and the organization, they feel confident in this core still, the starting five specifically, then you might have to kind of overspend or add some more salary and kind of dip into that tax. And I don't think they've been in a tax team since 2004 when they were.
That's crazy.
Which a lot of people you ask around here, I think they would say that 03-04 probably, or 02-03 probably was the best team ever, but 03-04 right behind them. I mean, a really good team that still had Weber kind of coming back from an injury, but they had to kind of add talent around those guys and overspend a little bit. So it's hard for me to look at this team as constructed and say they're going to win a playoff series. They haven't won a playoff series since that team in 04. To get to that point, you might have to at some point add some salary, take on more back, and it might go back to ownership. Is how much are you willing to spend and how much are you willing to invest in this team to make sure that they get past that point and not be complacent and not keep reaching for a first round appearance, going beyond that and going further.
Spotrac has them for what it's worth, $2 million, a little over $2 million under the tax, and $5.9 million, just under $6 million under that first apron as well.
So when you say that to me, and when I watched the clip over the weekend, it did feel a little bit chicken or the egg to me in a way. You want a contender, but you have to pay for a contender, but you don't want to pay for a contender until you have a contender. So I guess, are we a year away from, okay, if y'all prove you can get to the playoffs, or if this team is good enough to get to the second round, then let's have a luxury tax conversation next season because we're close. I can't pay a luxury tax for a team that, I guess there's a line to your point, Brenden, that you need to get to without the luxury tax before we dip into it. I'm not paying for a play-in team, and if Cam Johnson's going to take me into the luxury tax, I can't do it because that's not going to get us to the finals. You got to get that money back, finals revenue, whatever. Every round that you get past matters. So it feels chicken or the egg, but I guess the argument is you have to show me more, and then we can have the conversation.
I've always really liked Vivek's comparison of like sports and religion about how it brings a community together. And all of that's true. And it's a fun thing when it comes down to it, but it's a business for Vivek. So you need to, like, he has to balance that of how much is he making, how much he's losing, obviously, and what that ends up netting. So, if you like, Golden One hasn't been filled every game this year.
No, I think I looked up attendance, and there
was a game the other day that had like 15,000 people.
Yeah, I do believe they were definitely bottom half for attendance.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's kind of hard to know at the current point of would that tune change as the team started to progress. But I think this is a reality that a lot of general managers around the league have to deal with, and something that was probably known when Monte McNair took the job in the first place. Yeah. So what you're dealing with. And is that an added layer of complication? Sure. It's not exactly atypical though around the league in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Suns and what they didn't get any votes in Sam Amick's survey either, and it's probably they spent all this money. Their bench is better, right? And I don't even think Tyus Jones would count because he's starting. Their roster's better than it was, but you're in a bad position financially. You have nothing to show for it so far.
Well, but they have if healthy, a very good roster, and they have that to lean back on. And look at the players that did come and take veteran minimum deals to play for them, like Tyus Jones. Like those are the kind of players, or Royce O'Neal, a guy who the Kings were looking at maybe targeting, and he helped them a lot down the stretch last year. He had a shot that put the game away against the Kings in the final stretch of the year. So there are some moves that the Kings could make if they get to that point, and maybe you have enough talent. People will take veteran minimum deals to come play here, and maybe it won't be the Doug McDermott's or Jay Crowders. Maybe it'll be someone that are, or not to say that they're irrelevant, but maybe people that could help more of a day-to-day basis right now. So it's a fine line. What will it take to get to that point where they feel like they want to spend and get into that luxury tax? I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I feel like at some point it might have to be, a possibility.
Funny you say that, Frankie. I know there's a player out there who a lot of people would take a vet minimum if he was out here.
Who?
You know who?
LeBron
James.
Okay.
All right.
You're not wrong.
You're
not wrong with that.
I thought you were going to say a Morris twin.
No,
I thought so too.
I said that one time. I brought up a Morris twin one time. And they still would bring a lot of dog to this team. They still would bring a lot of dog. These guys bring a lot of dog to SactownSports.com. Go check out all their work. Brenden, we're going to play his song coming back from the break. Brenden Nunes, Frankie Catoscelli. Go check out all their work on SactownSports.com. Follow them, social media on X. We will talk to them soon. And when we come back, we have our Kings versus Pelicans preview. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.